Youth ministry is just as vital, just as important as any other part of the church.
Every church has a youth ministry. Even if you don't have a youth ministry, you have a youth ministry, you're just not doing anything with it.
Yeah. There's no age on the Great Commission.
Youth ministry matters because youth students matter to Jesus.
Yeah. You have a baby, I can drop that baby off after 2 or 3 weeks, put them in a nursery, and never go to church with them.
You are only going to be ministering to those students at most 7 years, but their parents are going to be in their lives their entire life.
I think the easiest thing you can do is
Hey everybody, welcome back to Fridays at First. We got a special episode for you today. This is not Pastor Nick. This is Rob from Blue Springs. He's the youth pastor, the student pastor. Fun fact, he was actually my youth pastor growing up, so I had him in youth ministry from 6th through 12th grade, and I was just very blessed to have him as a youth pastor. You want to just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your experience with youth ministry?
I've been doing youth ministry now full-time for 26 and a half years.
That's almost longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, so it's been great. Did a few, I had about 4 years out in Albuquerque. I'm from Kansas City area, but had moved out there to take a job, came back, and I've been at First Baptist Blue Springs now for 22 years at this point.
That's awesome.
So it's been good, man.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing, because you just don't see it too often where people are in youth ministry that long and just that many years pouring into students. And so you can definitely see it paying off of that consistency. And so we're going to have some just youth ministry related questions, but it will be practical for, I think, the whole church. And so anybody who's listening, this will have some practical stuff in there. But the first question I want to ask is, why does youth ministry matter?
Yeah, youth ministry it's just a part of the body. That's like saying, why does worship matter? Why do adults matter? Well, I mean, it's all a part of the church. And so there's no one thing over the other. I think youth ministry provides churches, I think it's just a good opportunity. I'm doing like an interview instead of just a conversation.
Either way, you can both ways.
I think I think you have a group of people that need to be reached like any other group of people that need to be reached. And if you can catch students at that young age, we know that after the age of 18, people are far less likely to come back to churches, far less likely to seek out their faith. And so you have a few years where you can work alongside their family, with their community, to point people to Jesus and offer great chances for discipleship at that age. I mean, students are soaking up from all these different influences. The church has an opportunity to be a big influence in their life. And so I think, youth ministry is just as vital, just as important as any other part of the church. I don't think it's separate. I think it's a part of it.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into some of those details here in a second. But I think that's so true of this reality that I don't remember who said it. It was either a college professor or I read it from a youth ministry book, of just that reality of every church has a youth ministry. Even if you don't have a youth ministry, you have a youth ministry, you're just not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
And so every church is called to minister to, your community, to the surrounding nations. But part of that includes ministering and reaching youth students. And so there's going to be that call of, you have people in your church who are youth age that you need to reach with the gospel and disciple. And then you also have people in your community that are youth age that you need to reach with the gospel. And then you even brought it up too of, there's also that other part of it. Youth ministry matters because, the church is called to equip the saints. And so that goes for those that are that age, but it also applies to helping parents and the people that are involved in those students' lives be able to be equipped to share the gospel with them, be equipped to disciple them and just help point them towards Jesus. And so I just think it's an interesting question. I don't think too many people are asking that question, but clearly youth ministry matters. And I think, I'll just put it simply, youth ministry matters because youth students matter to Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that applies to them, applies to their parents, and Jesus is working in the local church to reach those youth students.
Yeah, for sure. There's no age on the Great Commission.
Yes.
He didn't say, go and start with this age because they're the most important. It just says, go and make disciples.
Yeah, and so I want to talk about a practical thing with maybe some issues and things teenagers are dealing with now that maybe some older adults don't realize, just some of the more complex issues that teenagers today deal with that maybe people in the past didn't deal with?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that we are just so unaware is how social media is playing such a huge role in the lives of young people. We're seeing it more and more. Being in youth ministry as long as I am now, I have parents, like you guys who, grew up and you guys kind of grew up in that age of social media a little bit. But even for you all, it's so much more now in the lives of students and teenagers to where they're just always on. You used to be able to go home from school, go to practice, come home, and you weren't on a social life, but their social life is always going now. And I don't think we have all the answers to it. I don't think there's one way, you don't want to go on one extreme and say, well, I'll cut out everything, because that's not realistic in the lives of any of us. But it's also not healthy to say, well, that's what it is, and just let them have free reign. And it's tough. And even as a parent, I battle with this all the time. I've made mistakes of allowing too much. I've made mistakes of saying no and holding off too much. The pressure students feel, though, there is a reason why anxiety and mental health has gone higher in the ages, I think it was like 12 to 18 after COVID, than any other age group. And I think that it's a direct connection to social media. And I don't think it's something that's hard for us to navigate, because most parents didn't grow up in that. And if we do have social media, we use it just to, we're checking in on friends, reading whatever drama's going on in our city's community.
And for a lot of it, yeah.
And, it's not the same. It's not the same. For them, it is a constant social gathering for them. Yeah. And I know, think about how tired, as parents, think about how tired you are after a church. When you've had a blast, you've had fun, but you're social, or after a Wednesday night or whatever we do that's busy. But imagine never being able to turn that off, because they're always so connected to things. And I think that is one thing it's tricky and it's hard to navigate. And I think that's something that as parents, we're trying to figure out and trying to learn. And I think just keeping up with that as much as we can it's hard. Yes. It's hard. I don't know. I don't have all the right answers for it.
No, I think you're so right with that, because that was one of the main ones I was going to bring up, was just social media and different impact it's had on us. And one of them is that related to, they're on social media. So there's always been a thing when it comes to like high schoolers and middle schoolers of trying to figure themselves out and where they belong and trying to find their identity. And this, in schools, it's just very easy to get caught up in, what this person says about you or this person says about you, and getting your identity lost in others people's approval rather than Jesus's approval. And I think the reason it's so much harder for teenagers today is because it's the same problems we've been facing. So it's not a new problem, but it's just all these problems are amplified. It's not, they go home and they get a break from constantly trying to win people's approval. No, now it's social media that's what they're doing constantly all day. And there's never a real break from that. And so for a lot of them, it's hard to find who they are apart from what other people say about them and apart from their phones. And let's say even you see at camp and stuff, and what times where they have to be completely away from it for the first, they get used to it eventually, but after the first day, they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. My whole life is caught up in this. And I like how you pointed out too, of we can't completely get away from it, but that doesn't mean that we should just completely ignore the issues that it's creating. And I'll just say two other ones that I see and I think it's with social media and with technology today. Again, it's just amplifying problems that have been a thing, but they're just on a different scale. And I mean, with internet and technology, you have access to things that you would have never had access to years prior. And so seeing things before, one you should never see, and then just access to that's having an impact on our students. And then also, I think you're seeing a growing in ADHD and attention spans that are impacting our students' lives, just because, again, the constant stimulation that you have from social media and technology is just different from the past. And you even mentioned social media even if you had Facebook or MySpace, or those things are just so different than what the students are dealing with today. It's just completely different ballgame.
Yeah. Well, and the influence too. That's the big thing is, I get on Facebook and I'm just reading stuff. But when you start looking more on Instagram, TikTok, it's the influencing is such a huge thing. And so they're under so many things telling them, this is what you should look like. This is what you should do. These are the workouts you should be doing. This is the body type you should have. It's just a constant barrage of influence that changes all the time. And I don't think, we didn't grow up with that in that same way. And I think we're just trying to catch up with the impact that's having on young people's lives.
Yeah. And so I think that's a good thing to be aware of. I don't think we have all the answers to that.
No.
But the students that we are ministering to are in a unique situation that we need to be aware of. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about what are some misconceptions about youth ministry. And so there's a whole bunch of different avenues we could go with this, but what are some misconceptions of youth ministry?
And I'm sure you've dealt with this before, and I think the misconception is like it's just, they're just having fun. It's a place for them to have, they go, they do their thing, the youth pastor, all the stuff we show, all the fun stuff, the silly stuff, the color wars or the dodgeball game or whatever. I think people see those things. And so there's a misconception sometimes that it's just this fun, it's the silly side of things. And then that's all that there is. And I think if we portray that as a church, then that's what adults start thinking. And if we're not careful, that's just the image that it gets out. And all that fun stuff, it is fun. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But those are just a means to part of an end. You're working with students. You're going to have fun. You got to have, there's going to be some draw. They're going to have you're going to do silly stuff. But part of that is so that they'll break down their walls. We do goofy, silly things, not just to be silly or goofy, but to allow students the freedom to just exhale and just breathe and not be on, to kind of disassociate from other stuff and just be able to be themselves around other friends, around other people. And so that's where those things come across. And I think when people really understand that, they start to see what takes place beyond that, the teaching, the discipleship, the foundation that's really getting built there. And I think that's across the board from church. I think it's young people going into ministry sometimes have this false idea of what student ministry is. And it's going to be this and this. And those little goofy things are a tiny percentage of all the other behind the scenes stuff that we're doing. And I think that's a big thing. And I think it's changed a lot since I've done student ministry. There was a big misconception of it's the student pastor and all the students have one side, and sometimes parents felt like they were on the other side, it's us versus them type of thing. And I think the church and ministry has done a really good job of saying we are coming alongside. My relationship with my parents and my adult leaders, I probably spend just as much, if not more time with them now than I ever do with my students, because we can't do what we're trying to do if it's not with the family. And I think we're starting to see a lot more family ministry push from the church to say this is important, but we are all in this together. And so I think those are a misconception that's changed in a healthy way.
Yeah. I want to add on to a couple of those. And we could talk about this all day, so I'll try not to spend all of our time on the misconceptions. But there is that misconception, it's just fun, or you're just babysitting the kids and having that mindset. And I feel for children's ministry too, because they'll get some of the same misconceptions of you're just babysitting the kids until their parents come and pick them up. So it's more than that. There's a deeper discipleship and there's intentionality to it. And I think it's funny though, because adults do the same thing. Their fun just looks different.
Yeah.
For most of your older adults, they're not going to play dodgeball to have fun, but they will drink coffee, sit around, have a meal, and play board games or whatever they do for fun. There's still fun and fellowship. It just looks different. But with the youth ministry especially, I think it is more over the top because those kids, what they want to fun and fellowship and what gets them to, I like how you put it, of help them to put away everything else and just be themselves and just have a good time. It just looks different than what adults are doing.
Yeah.
And so and again, are there examples of churches out there that are doing that at the expense of ministry? I think that those are cases like that. You can find those churches that are doing that. But I think most ministries that are doing it well are using those opportunities to better know students, build those relationships, and actually be able to have those relationships that point them towards Jesus. And so, I love how you brought up that misconception. What was one of the other, you brought up, what was one of the other
us
misconceptions?
versus them.
Oh, yeah.
And more the growth of family ministry that we're seeing in churches.
Well, and I don't know, hopefully this is changing. And I think there's a misconception in the past that like, oh, well, the church is supposed to raise and disciple your kid of, well, I'm just going to drop my kid off at church and then you show them Jesus and then I'm just going to go do something else. And I think that's starting to change, but there's still all that. We kind of have I think it's described as like a fast food mindset a little bit of, and but this reality of healthy churches, healthy youth groups are moving past of the youth ministry doing all the work, the youth pastor or those youth leaders, or the vice versa, trying to make the parents do all the work. But no, it needs to be, hey, parents are the primary discipleship leaders of their students. But as youth ministries, we want to come alongside that and help in any way that we can to help equip parents and help along in that process of discipling those students. Anything you want to add to that real quick?
No, it's a healthy trend that I think healthy churches are seeing take place, and they're walking alongside. I think like what you said, at one time it was just drop your kids off here. And I think that's not to the fault of parents. I think that's the fault of the church saying, we'll take care of this. Yeah. We'll go from here with it. Drop your kids off here, separate over here. There was a time, I mean, many of you people that are probably watching this, church members, where you could have a kid, drop them off 3 weeks after they were born, never attend worship service with them. And I think we're going to get to this here in a minute. And they'll never go to church with their families. Just let the church take care of them. And then when they graduate, maybe we'll put them in a singles class or a college class. And they can go the way the church set themselves up. To try to do the right thing of like, well, we got great preschool and we got great kids and we got great students and now we have this, and then they graduate and they've never been apart with their family. And we kind of separated the family, and I think in an unintentional way. And I think we're seeing a lot more churches growing back towards saying we have to walk alongside people and not take care of everything. And I think it's a healthy, direction, looking back in hindsight of maybe where we went kind of the wrong way. And I think that's where I meant kind of maybe not us versus you as far as like we're enemies, but just like you do your thing, we'll do our thing, and we'll bring your kid to Jesus, and then get frustrated in ministry of like, oh, these parents are upset with me. Well, we kind of set ourselves up to be in that way if we're not walking together in it. I think that's the big thing.
I love how you put that, because I think it's easy it's easy as humans to always blame the other person. I think that's like our sinful nature. But I think in ministry, it's easy to, it's the parents that are dropping their kids off and not being a part of it. But I love how you put that responsibility back on the church of, hey, what have we done to make it the way that it is? Did we do a part in this? And I think you're right of, we set it up and made parents believe, the best thing for you to do is basically get out of the way so we can minister to your students, when that's not the healthy way forward. At all. And that's even like, and if you're in youth ministry or want to help in youth ministry or youth pastor or different things like that, of that realization that like, that's still a temporary role of you are only going to be ministering to those students at most 7 years, but their parents are going to be in their lives their entire life. Yeah. And so, you could push their parents out of the way and do as much as you can in those 7 years, or you could be intentional about pouring into those parents and helping them and still using the best of those 7 years to connect with those students and pour in their lives. And I'll just mention real quick, the other misconception that gets along this, I think what we're talking about, is there's this misconception that youth students are just the future of the church, of this reality that, one day they'll be the church. And I think I get what people are saying with that. They're getting like, pour into youth students because when we're gone, they're going to be the ones who are leading. And I think there's a positive thing in that. But the negative part of that is forgetting that those students are the church now. Of if they're believers, they're part of Jesus' body. You are members of Christ's body if you're a believer. And that isn't just, you're not a junior believer just because you're not 18 yet.
Yeah.
And so I think we can't segregate youth students off just because they're not what we think is old enough. But if there are believers, we need to help find ways to incorporate them into the church. And I think that prevents some of these other things that we get into. I want to get into one more question and then we'll take a short break. How can parents disciple their teenagers when they feel unqualified, discouraged, or disconnected from them?
Yeah, I saw that question and I was really thinking, to me, in what I've had some conversations lately with some parents and with some dads, I think you just have to jump in somewhere. It's going to be hard. When they're younger, for us, we had, some curriculum and it had a little video thing you could do with your kids and they could watch it and you could talk with them at home and it was really easy. As they get older, we try to provide devotionals and different things for our kids, trying to get that out to families. Read the emails that your youth pastor, your student pastors, or your ministry leaders send you to see what are my kids reading and getting into. But I think for the easiest thing, especially when they're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I think the easiest thing you can do is come up and just say, hey, I'm praying for you. Just start there, and maybe your kid's gonna be so thrown off. Maybe your kid's not gonna be responsive of it and say, okay, but I think it's just letting them know, hey, I'm praying for you, and start asking, I tried to do this and I need to get back in the habit of being better at this, of just saying, what's something I can be praying for you this week? And they're going to say nothing. I don't know nothing. They're going to give you some but just get something out of them. You got any tests? You got anything? And then start praying for that. And then ask them, follow up. Hey, how did that go? Hey, whatever they gave you, follow up with it. No matter how big or how little it was, and be like, man, I was praying for you on that. If there's an event coming up, you got camp or whatever, and you're encouraging them to invite friends or whatever, as parents, easiest thing you could do. Hey, I'm praying for you. Is there anybody particular you're going to invite to camp? And just start there. Start letting them know, I'm going to God in this relationship. And I think when you start building those little things, the other conversations can start happening. I think, and make church a priority for your family. It's something. And I know I'm not going to go into the whole sports thing if this is going on. If you are available, I'll just start there. If you're available to go to church, do it. That should be a non-negotiable for your family and for your kids. Don't just because they started becoming teenagers and be like, I don't want to go to church today. Okay. And then you go home, you go without them. That can't be. Now, if it's sports and stuff, I want to be clear, all right, because this is different for every family. But if your family is available to be there at church, be there. I see so many families, all of a sudden, once they get to be teenagers, they just stop. And the parents keep going to church, though. But they just leave their kids at home. And I think that's the easiest thing you can do to guide them, is say, this is important. This is what we do as a family. And then if there's a reason why they're not wanting to be going, have the conversation with your pastor and their leaders. Start talking about those. And so I think it's different for every family. I would just say, find something, get over it, because it's going to be uncomfortable if you've never done it before, or if it's something new, you need to start talking about it. But you have to make that effort and say, this is what I'm going to do. And so whether that's praying with your family at a mealtime, asking your kids what you can be praying for, texting them some scripture every now and then, go from there, and then that can lead to, other things. But I don't know if that kind of answers it. My thought was, I kind of went from, all right, if I'm doing nothing with my kids right now, I'm a teenager, and all of a sudden I start trying right now, those kids are going to go, what are you doing? Why are you being weird? Why are you now doing this if you've never done it before? And then as parents, we're like, well, I don't know. It was weird. They didn't receive it how I wanted to. And then they back off. And I think you just have to put that foot in and start. And there's easy little things that you can start doing to create opportunities for more things so they open up more.
No, I like that. I think that's very practical of just that starting slow. Because I think what happens, and not just in the area of parenting, but we can do this in our own spiritual lives and or with working out. Oh yeah, you haven't worked out in 10 years, and all of a sudden you're feeling convicted because you're feeling out of shape. The best thing for you to do is not work out for 10 hours the next day. You will literally kill yourself if you jump into extreme exercise like that. Oh, but starting those habits practically, and the same advice I give when I'm telling someone of when you're trying to get a Bible reading plan started, and you haven't read your Bible in a year, you probably shouldn't try to read a chapter at a time. Yeah. You shouldn't try to, I'm going to read the entire book of Philippians tomorrow. You might complete that, but then the next day, you're not going to read another book of the Bible. It's going to burn you out already. But you might just start slow and start where you're at I'm going to read a verse. I'm going to slowly do that consistently and build up over time. And I think that applies to that parenting with this of your kids are going to think you're weird if you just jump all right, we're going to take a trip and get away and we're just going to focus on parenting. And not to say that those trips aren't good, but start where you're at and then work up from there. And the other thing I would say with this, the encouragement I would give it is almost having a kind of an evangelistic mindset. And I just say that because these same tips I've heard related to evangelism. And that is what Rob already said, pray for them. Start praying for them. But then also start asking God for opportunities for these things. Hey, God, would you just give me one opportunity to just have a conversation with my kid about this? And again, maybe it's not, you don't have to jump into the deep end right at the beginning, but praying for them, praying for opportunities to get into these topics, and even just doing the things like, make a habit of going to church with your family. And then maybe, after when you're at lunch or eating lunch that day, maybe just ask if there was anything that stood out to them in the sermon that day. Or maybe you need to start even farther back. Hey, was there anything funny that happened today? I'm just starting to build up that relationship. And then the last encouragement I give too is, I know it's easy to feel like, I'm not qualified, I'm not enough. But even if that is the case, even if you are just terrible, which is probably not the case, but even if that was the case, Jesus is more than able to work in you to minister to your kids. And so even if you're not enough, Jesus is more than enough. We have to take a short break, and then we'll come back and talk about a few more questions. Welcome back to Fridays at First. We're going to continue our conversations related to youth ministry and youth students in the church. And so my next question is just a very practical question of, there's a common trend related to students walking away from the church after high school. What can we practically do to help with this problem and to prevent that from happening? Yeah, we talked about this a little bit before. There is a statistic that came up. I was kind of shocked by it, and I don't know if you've seen it. I forget what it came out on, but it showed kids that just attend worship service with their parents on Sundays. If they go to worship service with their parents, if that is a regular thing in their life, the statistic for them to continue going to church, it was like 80% or something. It was wild. If they attend a family, like going to worship with their parents, that they were far more likely to continue going to church after. And I was kind of shocked by that, because I always thought, man, the key is to keep them plugged into student ministry. The key is to get them doing this and then have an incredible college ministry. Those are all great, and those did have factors into it. But the number one statistic was, did they go to church with their parents? Was that a priority? Because as parents, and it makes sense, it's showing this is a priority in our lives and as our families' lives. And as kids are a part of that, they see themselves as a part of the church then. That, like you said, I'm not the future of the church, or I'm not just over there. And it goes back to some of those problems that we kind of created before, like that we talked about before. You have a baby, I can drop that baby off after 2 or 3 weeks, put them in a nursery, and never go to church with them if the church is set up that way. And they can just go to youth and then go do whatever. And then they graduate high school, and then we're like, well, how come they don't want to be in
Big church. Well, they've never really been exposed to it, or it was never a priority for their family to be at. And I think that is the number one thing, is for churches to make sure you're set up that families can go to worship together and then have, something for your students or whatever, and not have those things go along at the same time, which a lot of churches have kind of come along and done. But it's also important just to remember, what time do you guys meet? For
like
youth?
Sunday or
for
Sunday
mornings. What times youth meet?
Well, because ours are like completely separate. So like we have right now an 8:15 service, a 9:45 connect group. So that's for everybody.
Okay.
And then we have an 11 o'clock service. And so right now, like we don't have them even overlapping. That will change whenever we start doing 3 services.
Okay.
And so, but the youth will still stay at the same time. And so there'll still be opportunities to go to church with your family.
Because a lot of churches, typically you have 2 services. You'll have, I'll say for our church, we have a 9 o'clock and a 10:30 service, and our youth is at 10:30. Well, if families are saying, well, we just go to the 10:30 service and we drop our youth off. Okay, you're setting yourself up to tell your kids, youth is important, worship is not.
Yeah.
And then when they graduate, what have they learned? And so I think that's so important to, as a church, have the opportunity that they can go to church together as a family and then have their other things afterward. Go serve somewhere afterwards and let their kids go do their thing. I think that's the number one thing. And that's not just my thought. It was on one of the Barna things. And so that's a nationwide, a huge study. And the second thing is providing them opportunity to serve within the church now. And I know ours, and a lot of churches are going this route. For seniors, when they go into their senior year, every other month, their senior year, they serve in the church in a ministry role. And we work with our other ministries to do that. So they might be, they're with us in August, and then September, seniors will serve in different areas. So they can do parking lot, greeter, kids ministry, preschool ministry. Some of the team, they work on the worship team. Some of them do the audio tech stuff. Anywhere adults can serve, our seniors are trained by those ministry leaders, and they work alongside adults. That's been huge for us, because what it's allowed them to do is see their spiritual gifts, because they do all of our gift assessment and stuff during the summertime, so that they kind of figure out where they want to be. And then as they're serving in those roles, they're getting connected to other adults, they're getting connected to other ministry leaders, and especially for students that are staying here and not going off to college, they already know when they graduate, then they have adult leaders talking to them and saying, hey, when you're done with student ministry, do you want to serve and be a part here? And they have developed that role and that seeing their gifts get played out, and they are going right into those. And we started doing that a couple years ago. Our retention for students that are just staying behind either in careers or going to MCC has been way higher than ever before. And we've added on kind of a young adult ministry to go along with that. And so they're a part of the church that, like you said, you're not the future, and we're developing them along with that. And they're getting to be a part of other leaders in the church. They're working with the leader of the parking lot ministry. They're working with the kids ministry, and they're working with the volunteers that are with that. And so they see themselves as a part. Those 2 things are huge. It's not, we need a better youth ministry. We need to be crazier. Brett, you got to keep them pulled in. And then you can't do that. It's got to be a priority of the church to say, we are doing this as a whole together with the parents, making it a priority, finding their gifts. I think that is huge. And I go back to, that was a mistake the church made, thinking, well, how come we're losing them? We never incorporated them.
Yeah.
And then we're wondering why they aren't there. And so I think as we're coming alongside families, seeing the importance of parents in their lives and making that a priority, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. And so I won't be saying it too much new, just kind of repeating what you just said. But I think that's a big reason why students walk away from church when they graduate. A big reason is that because so many youth ministries are just segregated in their entirety from the church. And that's why as youth ministries, as youth pastors, as people working with youth ministry, we need to do our due diligence to where our youth ministry isn't a separate entity from the larger congregation. Whereas if your students say, oh, my youth group is my church, there's an error there. There's an issue there. Of when they think of their church family, they should think of the entire congregation, not just the youth ministry, but they're connected to the younger kids as well as those older people across the street. For us, anyway, they are a part of the local church, not just part of the youth ministry. And there's different ways you can get at that and make that a practical reality. Make sure that we're not making so much out of youth ministry that we neglect the church. And I would even give this advice to youth pastors out there that are listening of make sure that you don't care more about your youth ministry than you do about the whole church, because then that's going to show in your students. They're going to see that in you. If all you care about is your youth ministry, then they're going to say, okay, well, then the rest of the church doesn't matter. But I love how you put it too, about getting to serving and getting them to feel a part of that body. Because the one thing I say, like whenever I'm baptizing students, is I say, do you understand that the church needs you? And they say, yes. And I say, do you understand that you need the church? And then they say, yes. And then baptize them. But I love how you talked about how getting them practically to serving, because then it's actually helping them understand, no, not only do you know that the church needs you, but you're seeing tangibly, hey, this is a need that you're meeting through serving. And so you're connecting them, not just to, because I think that's what happens with some youth ministries is they give them a lot of opportunities to serve in the youth ministry, which is good and which is great. But it's great if you can get those opportunities where they're serving in kids ministry or serving in greeting or serving in the tech or whatever it is, finding ways to plug them in. And I think that's another thing too of make sure, like in youth ministry, and champion your pastor, of make sure that they know who the pastor of your church is, and that they understand that that's their pastor too, because they're a part of the church, they're a part of that body. Yeah, you're their youth pastor, but help them know that pastor, give opportunities for them to feel connected to him and the other church staff across wherever that is.
I mean, and pastors and church leaders need to have that same mentality, that they need to know, well, that's not my congregation's these adults, that's the youth pastors group. They got to be a part of that. I'm so blessed, and the church you grew up with, Brett, is so blessed, and I know nothing but positive things for Oak Grove. But man, our pastor just speaks into our student ministry lives. From the stage, he points them out. And I think that's important to remember as you're talking. If you're a pastor or whoever's listening to this, as they're speaking, they're also pointing out the students' lives in there too. And so when we're talking about burdens, they hit all the adults and like, man, there could be this going on in young adult lives. And for our leaders, we're elder led. And so during refuel weekend or, our camp, we have our elders are out there serving food with the kids. They're high-fiving kids. Our kids know them and they know the value of that. And as a pastor, I'm always telling them like, hey, our church leadership has made this a value for them. So our students know we are a part of the church. And so I think I think healthy churches understand that. Healthy churches understand we're doing this together. So there isn't that separation. And I think that's parents making a priority, and then churches making a priority. If you're doing that, you're going to see far less fall off. Yeah. And for the kids, some of that statistics is a little skewed because kids go off to college. So a lot of those are like, well, these kids left and never came back. Yes. The return from, the 25 to 35-year-old is a high return if they've been doing those things before. They knew this was the value of my church and my life. And now when they start families of their own, they're looking for churches that have that same value. And so our elders in our church, our pastor will always say, like, you're only as healthy as your student ministry and your kids ministry. If those things are not getting poured into and showed love, your church is not going to be going in the right direction. Yeah. And the value of that walking alongside together is huge.
Yeah, one other thing I would say with this too is I think one reason why students stop going to, I think there's a natural progression when you're a senior in high school where a lot of times for the first time, well, especially after you graduate too, a lot of times it's for the first time in your life, it's your decision whether you go to church or not. And I think that gets into what you were saying of, if your family has made a priority of it and already had those conversations with them, even in the times when they didn't want to go. Let's talk about this now while you're in a place where we have resources and people to point you in the right direction. Let's have those conversations. Then they're going to be more likely to make that decision to go on their own when it is their decision. And then the other thing I would just give advice I'd give to college just people in college, that young adult age, whether you're in a career now or going to college, whether you're staying home or going far away, make sure you get plugged into a local church. If you're staying where you're at, continue, like Rob was talking about, get to serving in your local church. And if you're going off to college somewhere, the first thing you should do once you get settled in, which is that same week, you don't have to wait a month, just start going to a local church. Find a church that you can plug in and invest in. Because even while you're at college, those churches that are in those towns would love for you to be a part of it, and it'd be such a blessing for you to invest in those, even if it's for a short period of time, even if it's just for those 4 years. They would be blessed by you participating in their local church gathering. I got one more question for us today, and that is, what is one practical way every person in our church can help the next generation follow Jesus?
Oh man, I think we kind of hit on a lot of those. Like, come alongside, serve with them, volunteer. Even if you're like, student ministry is not my thing, but I can serve food. I can open up. I can help in those ways. And also, don't hold on to things that you think that are important that maybe not be important to the church. Whether it's a certain style of one thing or another. Whether it's music or anything, of realizing, are we seeing growth in these areas, and that's healthy, then we need to open up to that and realizing that those things are good. And so, I think just making it a priority. And it's not just student ministry, it's making a priority to say, do we want to disciple people? Okay. Well, then I want to be a part of that, and I have a lot of people, of our senior adults in our church that are like, we want to give. We want to help scholarship camp. We want to help scholarship a refuel. That's their opportunity. But I then make sure, I don't say names, and I don't get a lot of names, but we have a lot of people that donate that. But I always speak that into our students of like, hey, we have scholarship money available. We have so many of our senior adults have donated because they want to see your friends. When you're inviting your friends, if they can't afford it, if this is something tricky for you, I make sure our students know that money that's available for scholarship money or to help keep the costs, like our stuff's so low, guys, we have a budget. We were able to do this because we have a very giving church that values student ministry. And I think no matter what, you can show value into it. And so I think, if you're available to get involved, jump in, be a part of discipleship. You will never have such a rewarding experience if you're discipling students. I believe that. I think it's an amazing thing when you're seeing those students in the long term too, all right? 15 years ago, I'm driving a bus through Green Valley every Wednesday night after church. I would get home at 10:30 at night. It drove me crazy because a bunch of the kids were wild and insane. I'm like, what am I doing? We're driving this bus home from Green Valley after every Wednesday night. This is one of the kids though. He's a pastor now. So you can't tell me that investment. And we had a few other adult leaders that were doing the same thing. But the wave of ministry that's happened is huge. One of the other young girls, Joel Carpenter's wife, you guys know Shelby. She was one of those young mid-school girls that me and another pastor and a couple other leaders were driving out. We're like, what are we doing? It was investing, but man, I can't think of a better investment that would have made. I could have stayed home. It was the early 2000s. We were trying to watch Lost. I was missing my episodes of Lost. But what I could have been doing, watching Lost and watching old episodes on TV or helping out doing student ministry. While these kids are growing up, becoming pastors, reaching and bringing hundreds and hundreds of students to know Jesus. The investment you're going to make in student ministry is huge. And so as parents, you're not going to make a better investment than making church a priority. Adults, you're not going to make a better investment with your time than serving or giving or just volunteering in any way you can. All of our times are different. We're all a part of a church. But man, that's why I keep doing it. Every year I'm like, what am I still doing? My knee is sore. I'm tired.
He doesn't look it, but he's pretty old.
But the investment is just like, man, it's too good. It's too good. If you were putting money in the stock market and it's just skyrocketing, but you're like, well, I could invest in something that's, going to give me $1 back a year, or I can invest something that's going to give me $1,000 back a year. It's hard to pull your money out of there. And so
and I think
just think that's huge, man.
But that gets at it, though. I think that's putting others above yourself. I think sometimes even in the church, we get focused in ourselves and what we want, and we try to invest in things that will benefit us, rather doing the work to invest and pour into others. And so keeping that intentionality with it. He steals all the good things to say, so I don't know if I have too much to say, but I'll say just keep praying. Your youth ministry always needs prayer. Prayer for those students, prayers for those families, prayer for the leaders that are probably exhausted with dealing with some of those middle school boys, prayer for the youth pastor and the staff of your church. Always need prayer. I think you talked about serving and volunteering. I would say don't say that you can't serve in youth ministry until you've tried it. Maybe it's not for you. Youth ministry is not for everybody, but tell me that after you've tried it, sat in, shadowed somebody else, and saw what it's like. Because there are countless leaders, and you probably know it too, of that like, man, there's no way I could serve in youth ministry. Either they don't feel qualified, or they just think their kids aren't for them. And then find out a year down the road, those are the leaders that are doing the best job and are pouring into students that they would have never even thought, because initially they were writing off student ministry. No, I need to serve somewhere else because I don't think I can do that.
Yeah.
So try it out. It may not be for you, but at least try it out. And then if you can't volunteer in some of those capacities, there's even some other capacities like, for retreats and stuff, we always need people to cook food. We always, it's always a blessing, same as your guys' church, that people give towards youth ministry. I say the same thing, and our students are probably tired of hearing it, but it's a good thing. I always say, don't let money be the reason you don't go to this retreat or this camp. We will find a way for you to go. Yeah. And just the amount of people that, without even asking, will come up to me and be like, hey, I want to pay for a student to go to camp. I want to be able to make sure students can go to camp. And so continue to pray, give, and support youth ministries and their families. And I think that investment's worth it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to go back to that first question, or one of the earlier questions where you said, if you're not doing anything, what advice would you give to parents? And I just want to, parents, don't get in the comparison game. Don't look at what other parents are doing. Don't look at, well, that kid's so good and they're here and I'm dragging my kid to church. Some of the kids that are our best leaders right now in student ministry, some of our young adult college age guys that are our best leaders, were also kids that their parents had to drag them to church. So don't get caught in the comparison thing. Man, get with Christ. If you're married and you have a spouse, pray with them about it first. If you're a single dad or single mom, just start somewhere. Don't play the comparison game of, well, that family has it all together. You make Jesus a priority in your life, make church a priority in your life, and make that a priority for your kid's life. You still speak truth into your kid's life. And just start there, no matter what simple thing it is. I know it's overwhelming. I hear my family sits down and reads a 30-minute devotional every day all together. Okay, and you're like, I'm not gonna do that. My kids will never do that. Start out with whatever works for the flow of your family and your circumstance. And so don't compare yourself to others, because then you'll just say, well, why bother? I can't do this. Just start somewhere and be consistent with it. Your students are gonna see, are they gonna be consistent with this? Or if I just dig my heels in, they're gonna give up after a week. Just keep being consistent, keep being loving, keep coming to them, keep praying, and just make it a consistent part of your family. They'll come around to it. They're waiting to see that. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Do what Christ puts on your heart. And so I think we get caught up in that a lot as parents of that comparison game. Don't worry about that. You do what Jesus put on your heart to do.
All right, I love that. It's always funny. There's always the kids, not always, but oftentimes you'll see kids that were like the most difficult kids. Like I'm talking about some middle schoolers, and I'm like, man, I don't describe many people as demons, but I might have described you as a demon. And but then whenever they're in high school, about to graduate, it's those same students that you're like, you had the toughest time with. They're like, man, I think God's calling me to ministry. And you're like, well, I wouldn't have guessed it 10 years ago, but it's so cool how God's working your life now. Yeah. And then it goes to show you, they're like, well, yeah, I mean, parents obviously, but don't give up on your kids. Keep pouring into them. Keep praying for them, even if it's difficult. I love what Rob gave him, all the good advice of just stay consistent, start small. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. It's a great thing to do ministry with you, and it's crazy that you're still doing youth ministry.
Hey, that's the best thing about being, I'm turning 49 next month. And so when I have parents that are like, oh, I'm too old for this. No, you're not. I got you. If I'm still doing it, our best leaders are in their 40s and 50s. So you're not too old for it. You're just making an excuse. So that's one benefit of being the older student pastor, man.
Hey, that's another misconception. A misconception is, I can't help in youth ministry because I'm too old. No, if this guy can
I beat almost every parent to that. Like, no, you're not. Look at me. You can do this. And so it is funny, but just keep seeking Jesus out, man.
Amen. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Are we filming now?
Well, I'll start it, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. You want me to start again?
No, I think you should show this part. This is good.
I'll put this at the end. When they think the video's finally over,
okay.
I'll just put it right there. All right, I'll start again.